Okay, we're on. All right, so let's just. This doesn't. I know you have to go 340, right? Doesn't necessarily have to be super long, but I guess I don't know. I would just keep it like just having to rewatch the other one, a little more casual, and I think there's parts we can cut out of the other one, but yeah. Let me just pull up my notes, and then we can kind of just. I don't want to stop it necessarily, but just like the only thing is like don't in the last one like you kind of went into just like wait for me to ask after you finish like your train of thought on something. I'll ask like the next leading question.
Yeah.
And then we'll go into it.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Okay. All right, so we'll just go. Mission Impossible.
Yeah. You've got the, either it's Mission Impossible or Tom Cruise in, the pilot movie long time ago. Do you remember?
Top Gun? Yeah.
Yeah. You got the same glasses.
Oh, by the way, what did you think? So which one of these three titles do you think, or theme titles, do you kind of think work better?
I like the last one. I think, that kind of, hits the point, but I liked all three.
Yeah, I think the last one's better too. Do you think, is there anything you can talk about in SanDisk, like as far as?
Yeah. I mean, I can highlight some general things. Obviously, not anything specific, but I can share some interesting stories. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Perfect. Okay. All right, so we will just kind of start. So, hey everybody, I'm here with Ravi. This is the first podcast we're doing with You Don't Need a CMO. Basically interviewing, some of our clients, some influential entrepreneurs out there. I'm going to introduce a great guy and actually a client of mine. He has the company TaskHuman, which is a wellness coaching app. It's Ravi Swanminathan. Did I get the name right? Okay, cool. We've been working together for since December, so going on 4 months. It's becoming a long-term relationship. So we're kind of just going to get into it. Ravi, do you want to kind of just introduce yourself to everyone? Obviously, we'll get to TaskHuman and kind of everything else later. But just kind of tell us how you got into entrepreneurship. People listening are, probably starting your first company or somewhere along that line. So, why don't you tell us a little bit?
Chris. Thanks for the opportunity to be on your podcast. Hey, listeners, really awesome to be able to address you guys. I hope you find the content to be helpful in your own journey. So I'm Ravi Swanminathan. Chris actually got my last name pretty close, so that was actually very good. He's the closest that anybody has been, that doesn't already know how to pronounce my name. So congratulations, Chris. You did great. So a little bit about me. I've had an awesome 20-year career working with a lot of great people, great companies. My career actually, official career, started back in the 90s. I built a small company that was assembling PCs, back in India when, the internet had just been released. And, a bunch of people said, hey, I've heard of this thing called the internet. And what do I do? How do I get on this thing called the internet? And we said, well, you need a PC. Let us assemble one for you really cheap. And so we'd go out and buy all these parts and, we'd put it together. And, and it became a PC and we sold it to our relatives. And a lot of the guys liked it, and they referred us to other people and friends, and sort of became a build a PC kind of company. So it was really a ton of fun putting that together. Did pretty well there. Learned a lot about building, entrepreneurship, that kind of stuff. And then I kind of moved on to various other big companies over the years. Ericsson, Motorola, which later spun out one of their divisions into a company called Freescale. It was a $6 billion company. And then from Freescale to SanDisk, and then did a startup before my current startup called Wiser. It was AI computer vision. And then now with TaskHuman. And as Chris kind of said, the journey of entrepreneurship, it really, for me, had two paths.
Right.
Knew what it was to be an entrepreneur, back in my youth, and building PCs and that kind of stuff. And then later it turned into intrapreneurship, which is really, building things within an existing company. And, just from my career standpoint, it's always been an intrapreneur kind of journey where I got to build stuff that didn't really exist before. And so even within larger companies like Motorola and later SanDisk, I had the unique opportunity to think of an idea, go pitch it, convince people that it's worthwhile to take that chance to invest in it. And then we did, and it turned into, most recently at SanDisk, I built a big business from scratch to hundreds of people and tons and tons of customers, did very well. So that's been my journey, Chris. It's been an interesting journey, and it's really been involved building something or the other in all of these different places, and so it's been very enjoyable.
Yeah. So I kind of want to go back a little bit to what you were saying before about SanDisk entrepreneurship. So I think people are probably familiar with my background, having been someone who has not been on the entrepreneurship side or has not, kind of worked for a larger corporation. I think, probably a lot of people listening might be working, for companies and looking to either, evolve in that position and develop more of an entrepreneurial skill set, or even, kind of leave. So I guess, the two areas I kind of wanted to go into a little more is, could you take us back to, that time in your life when you transitioned, out of the entrepreneurial, environment and then into working for a company, and kind of, maybe go into how that, setting in terms of your mindset maybe changed, now on your way out and back into your own company?
Yeah, it was, a lot of it was driven by my economic necessity. I think a lot of us can relate to this, right? Sometimes, you just don't have the economic opportunity to run your own business because, you've got a
big issue,
you've got, whatever else going on in your life. So, for me, what I learned about myself, and then, I've had a lot of great mentors as well. What I learned is entrepreneurship is a mindset. Right? The one that says, I'm going to find a problem, whatever, space I've been given, I'm going to find a problem that nobody is working on, and I'm going to go and attack it, and I'm going to bring a unique perspective to it, and, find customers, learn from them, make it useful for them, and build your business that way. Right. And that's really a mindset, and you can apply it, if you're lucky enough to actually pursue your own passion by way of, being part of your own company, starting something on your own. Or, if you're in an environment where you have an office and you're part of a larger company, just bring that mindset, right? And, think of new things that could be done that evolves the business and brings more value to the company, to the customers, et cetera. And it's sort of that mindset. And so when I went into Ericsson, that was my first real corporate job, back in the 90s. I was actually in school, and I took a year off from school so I could go get some money and, come back and pay for tuition, all that good stuff. Took a complete year off from school, went to Ericsson in North Carolina, and, I started working on firmware and software for cell phones back in the day. And, I brought for me, the question was always, hey, how can I improve this piece of software that I'm working on so it has some features that, you can bring into things like that, right, Chris? And I think, Chris, you can also relate to some of these types of things that you've gone through in your career.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it's interesting that you bring up, having got into it in the first place, taking that year off the school to, kind of, make money on your own, and then how that kind of merged with, your desire to build things, which is literally exactly the same thing, that happened with me. I guess, my other question would then be, so where did you, when you started with that, where did you see it going somewhere? Did you have a clear kind of end vision, or were you more looking at it as a stepping stone?
Yeah, no, for me, you always get this advice, right? Find what you're passionate about and then go do it. Right. And I think it's great advice, but my life and career actually worked the, slightly different direction, where I didn't find what I was passionate about and then went and did it. I was just passionate about whatever I did. Right. So either you can find what you're passionate about and do it, or just be passionate about what you're doing. And I was just one of those guys that I was just super passionate about whatever I did. I was living in North Carolina back then. And it was, if you had talked to my friends at that time, I was the obnoxious guy telling everybody that Cary in North Carolina was the world's best place to live in, right? Just because I was there and I was enjoying it. Right. And, later we moved to Austin, and Austin, Texas, that became the greatest city ever. Now I'm in Silicon Valley, which I can absolutely assure you is the greatest place to be on the planet, right? It's really just, take what you're given and make the most out of it has been my career and my own, sort of lifestyle and my vision. So yeah, it just kind of worked out that way for me, Chris.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, have you heard that kind of, I feel the same way about that piece of advice as far as finding what you're passionate about. I think one of the things I see in a lot of people, I work with really is that they are basically passionate about being passionate about projects that they're working on. Is that something, kind of that you've observed in other entrepreneurs? Are there any kind of like figures in your life as far as, partners or people, who have advised you, that, share that kind of, or that have given that kind of advice to you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you, and by the way, I mean, if you're lucky enough, right, this is what I think about finding what you're passionate about and doing it. I think if you're lucky enough to have found that, definitely, right? If you know what you're passionate about, do it. And if you're lucky enough to pursue it, you absolutely should do it. But I think for a lot of us, I would say 80, 90% of the population, we're going to have something, right? We're going to be doing something just because it is what it is. And if you learn to be passionate about that, the passion and the energy and the ability to go to work and find these unique angles and being that entrepreneur or whatever it is, just becomes that much enjoyable. And that particular philosophy, to your question, Chris, was there somebody, did I always have that philosophy, or did somebody give that to me? It turns out it was really my parents who, kind of helped me think about, look, you've been given this, right? Don't be a dickhead. Enjoy what you're doing. You're actually doing way better than 99% of the population, which in many countries or wherever you're from, not everybody is even fortunate to be working at a company like Ericsson, right? So make the most of it and do well. So that was sort of the philosophy that was always imbued upon me by, parents and other well-wishers. So that's sort of where it started. But I also did have the good fortune of working with awesome mentors at, every place that I've worked. I've always tried to find a, person that's doing really well, that's really enjoying their job. And then I would go and ask them, hey, what is it about this thing? Or, how can I have switch my mindset? Or how can I have the same level of energy and passion that you bring to the table? And I was just very lucky, Chris, that, every stop in my career, I've just had fantastic people that I've cold approached, right? They just didn't know I existed, but I liked them. I went to them and I said, hey, can you be my mentor? Sometimes they say, look, I'm just too busy, don't have time. But quite a few times, it's worked out.
They want to help.
Yeah, because they want to help, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge thing. And just logistically, I think it's something everybody should do. Kind of if you're trying to get into a given industry or trying to, start a business in a given zone, really just reach out to people who are at that spot you want to be, for feedback, and, LinkedIn message them, whatever. And you generally get a pretty pretty solid response.
This is
Great
what you'll
people.
find is, for all of our readers and listeners, I mean, one thing you'll find, guys and girls, is that, you might get a few no's, but trust us, right? You're going to find a yes. So just keep going, right? Don't let the no stop you. Just keep going. And then eventually you're going to get a yes, right? And that's the beauty of this is, there are tons of people out there that want to give back to the next generation, because if you really think about your life, and, a lot of us, I'm a tech CEO now and, doing relatively well. Everybody can tell you, and I can assure you, all my friends, all my circle of, other tech CEOs that I talk to universally will tell you this, is that they all got to where they are because somebody or the other formed a pillar of support for them, right? And often it's not one person, it's many people throughout your career. So all of us have been here because of the generosity of strangers, really, right? It's always somebody that you don't expect, that you didn't know, that's taken a chance on you, right? I mean, even think of when you apply for a job, it's really another person on the other end that's going to take a chance on you and give you the job, right? Come on. I mean, you're interviewing with somebody, it's not going to be, they don't know you a lot, right? They just know you some, but they take a chance on you. And that's just the way the world works. And you'll find that as you go and talk to a ton of people, ask them to be your mentor, somebody will take a chance on you. And one day you'll do the same for whoever cold calls you, and eventually, right? So it's a big circle of life. And I think, Chris, you and I would both agree that, don't stop till you find that person, get that mentor, set of mentors, and, you're going to go a long way.
Right, or whatever it is, whether it's, clients, investors, or, teammates.
Right, exactly.
It's kind of just like one of the most essential skills, and going after the advisors is one of the best ways to hone it, because it's, there really is a circle of life per se, there, as far as people,
Right.
giving and taking. To go back to, I guess, not to kind of shift gears, at the end of your career at SanDisk, what was that time like, and kind of what led you to leaving and then going out on your own? You said it was kind of, an economic decision,
Right.
for going in, but how is it kind of different going out?
Yeah, no, actually it was, it was an interesting time in, I would say, tech history. SanDisk was acquired by Western Digital for, if I recall correctly, in 2016 for $18 billion. And so, in my career, ironically, or I would say coincidentally, I had been through the same exact type of acquisition once before. So I was at a company called Freescale, which was a spin-off of Motorola. Freescale got acquired by private equity for $18 billion. So Blackstone, TPG, Carlyle, Permira funds had acquired Freescale for $18 billion. And I kind of had been through one of those acquisitions, and I kind of knew what to expect. And so when it happened the second time, coincidentally in my career, it just felt like the right time to leave. And I had this idea for, getting back into entrepreneurship and working with smaller startups and growing them and that kind of stuff. And so when that just coincidentally happened with SanDisk, it just felt like the right time to transition the stuff that I'd been doing to other, awesome people, take care of my team, made sure that, everybody had important roles, in the new combined organization. And then it just felt like the right time to leave. So yeah, I mean, it was just, I wasn't waiting for it to happen, but it happened, and, I just made the most of it, right? It goes back to make the most of what you have and what you've been given. And I just decided to go back into entrepreneurship when SanDisk got acquired.
And was it hard, I guess, the second time going into entrepreneurship, or going out on your own? Was it more difficult?
It was a lot of soul searching. Every time you leave something, and I haven't left a lot of jobs because, over a 20-year career, I've only had 3 or 4 roles, and I've never left anything voluntarily. So, and I wouldn't have left SanDisk voluntarily either if the acquisition hadn't happened. But what was interesting is, my mindset, I think, had just irreparably shifted, because I had at SanDisk, I'd actually worked on an original idea that I had in my head, and, went and pitched to the, CEO and the exec team, got it funded, grew it to, hundreds of people, all that stuff. I think the mindset had just shifted to building something from scratch. right? And it would have been tough for me to leave SanDisk and go join a big company and, and then just take over something that already had existed. Right? So I think that mindset had already shifted to, okay, I'm going to be building something new. What can I do? And it just so happened that I ran into a AI company in LA that had formed, and were a pretty early stage startup. They were kind of thinking through, how they can grow and continue to build their product and all of that stuff. And I became president and co-investor in that company. And so that was sort of my journey from big company to small company, but it had just irreversibly, something had changed in my mind where it was going to be about building something new.
Got it. And then, I'm not super familiar with this, so this may just be my own curiosity, but then what was the, kind of impetus to go after TaskHuman? Because that, I think that is, it seems like that might almost be a more significant, moment in your life or decision, because TaskHuman as a product, or just, the industry or the nature of it is very different from other things that you've done in your professional career.
No, absolutely. For me, when I, Wiser, which was the previous company that I worked at, the startup that I was talking about, I'm an investor in Wiser. CEO is a personal friend of mine now. It became a time where the company had good foundation set up, and I had come in and I'd helped them raise a round and, got them their first set of customers, et cetera. So it had a good foundation and a good, person that they had to continue the journey and, go on and do great things. So, I actually was thinking about what next thing I could be doing at the time. And I had actually written down the business plan for TaskHuman 10 years ago. And,
Right.
enough, right? I had actually written it in ink and paper. So I actually had a book that, I had written this thing on. And I went and dusted it off, and I was like, hey, look at this stuff. Yeah, it was so weird. When I found that book, I was like, damn, and if I had done it back then, it would have looked like Craigslist. So I'm glad I didn't do it back then. But I mean, to me, Chris, the whole wellness space, this very well. I think a lot of us are lucky in that we have really close access to wellness coaching just because of the personal network we built or the kind of city we live in. But wellness is, something that touches everybody's life. And for me, when I was looking at the next big thing to do, the biggest criteria that I had was, if I do something, it needs to be impactful. Right? What is the thing that I can do and start or build next that's going to have a massive impact? And it's going to make a lot of people happy and fulfilled. And to me, wellness just, hit that mark on pretty much everything, right? If you had a checklist of all the things that you were looking for, space to go disrupt, where tech could help, something that has a really large impact on the global population, to me, it had to be wellness. And that's why we built TaskHuman. And as you know, Chris, TaskHuman is a wellness coaching platform that just creates an unprecedented level of ease of use, and then an unprecedented level of affordability, which are two big problems when it comes to wellness, today. Because A, it's not affordable, right? You're paying through the nose for a lot of these services.
Yeah.
And then B, it's definitely not instantly accessible, right? There's a huge process of going, searching for stuff, finding people, and then by the time you actually get the help that you need, it's hours, days, weeks, or months, right? So that's why, to me, wellness, from an impact standpoint, I felt like the next company I did had to be touching everybody's life. And I'm really glad I did TaskHuman, and I'm doing TaskHuman with you, because I think this product and this company has that kind of impact.
What, another big question for people, is work-life balance, right? What, have you, over the years, I guess, and maybe how has it changed, and how do you kind of address wellness? Have you seen coaches? Was there kind of, maybe a personal reason for this as well, related to, your experience in wellness?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm 190 pounds at the moment. So 8 years ago, I was 6 feet tall and still 190 pounds. And what I realized is, as an Asian, I was actually skinny fat. I mean, it's not something that you realize. It's not obvious. Like, you would never look at me and go, the dude is fat. But I was like skinny and fat.
Right, I know. Yeah.
And I just realized that, man, I need to lose the fat before I can build on muscle, because if I try to build on muscle now, I'm going to be, like even more fatter and bigger, right? And I didn't want to go up to like 250. So I actually started what has become an 8-year journey to strip down the fat. And so I went from 190 to 155 with the help of an awesome personal coach. Back then, we didn't have TaskHuman, right? This is 8 years ago. My coach was actually based in the UK, and I would do video calls with this guy over Skype or in the last set of years. Yeah, it was really interesting, and it was a referral from a friend. But before that, 5 years before I had found the coach, I had wasted all of my time on like every program that came out there, right? I wouldn't say wasted. I learned a lot. So I did Team Beachbody's P90X, Insanity Max 30, Insanity. I mean, like, you name the fitness program that plays on TV at 2:00 in the morning, I probably tried it, right? And interestingly enough, when I lost all the weight, I actually went from 190 to like 150. And I was looking like a skinny dude with like, totally probably had some kind of disease that couldn't build any kind of muscle, right? It was terrible. And I was like, man, I mean, this is really terrible, and I need to go and build more muscle. And so then I actually went up, and then on my way up, by the way, Chris, I actually put on a ton of fat because I did it all wrong, right? So I was putting more fat than... So this is the yo-yo, kind of concept that you get into in fitness if you don't know what you're doing. Right. And that's when I decided, okay, I need a coach. And I actually got a coach, worked with him for a year, and now I'm in decent shape. But it took that journey over like years to realize, you know what? Internet, the articles on the internet, various YouTube videos, there's a ton of it, but you're going to get confused. And, it's better off sometimes to just, talk to a human being that's in the profession and get advice and get it done, which became the genesis of then how do you find these people? Right? How do you find them? How do you connect with them, right? Why is it so difficult to talk to a few people and decide on the one that's right for me and then continue those sessions? That whole process is really, really, really painful and takes a long time, which is what we've tried to simplify with TaskHuman. And I really want, people to be able to get wellness advice on a whim, wherever you are, anytime, anywhere, right? And get a live human being helping you, not give you, billions of articles to read, which is what Google's going to give you. So yeah, I mean, it was an intensely personal journey and I feel like I wasted 8 years when I could have probably gotten that coach, on year one and saved myself the other 7, right?
Yeah. And I think, it's definitely super important. And I think a lot of people can relate to that, but, a not so subtle plug. I think for entrepreneurs in particular, TaskHuman, a lot of us, don't know what to do or don't know what's useful, maybe don't want to go to like fitness classes or hire a nutritionist, whatever. Maybe you're just like sitting on the subway or sitting on the bus or something, and you have a few minutes you want to address a given wellness issue. TaskHuman, you can come, you go right in and you'll see a list. And it's basically, the intro calls are free. I mean, it seems like very ripe for use for entrepreneurs.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I want to tie it back to the work-life concept that you talked about, right? Look, all of us are busy, right? None of us are sitting around. We don't have time to, go back and forth and spend 7 years, right? I was actually extremely disciplined, which is why I actually did a lot of this stuff. I just didn't know what I was doing. So I was applying my discipline in all the wrong areas, turns out, right? Because I was operating on lack of information. But tying it back to work-life balance, I mean, most of us are going to be working, right? And then trying to figure out how to have a life. That's where TaskHuman comes in. It takes the work out of what you need to be doing to establish, better mental health, better, stress reduction for you, right? If you're really stressed out, talk to a live person and, we have motivational coaches. We have awesome people that can actually help you think through this differently. So whether it's mind, something to do with your mind and training it and, looking at things differently, or your body, physical transformation, right? Maybe you want to gain muscle, maybe you want to lose some fat, or maybe whatever it is. Get rehab exercises for maybe a sprain that you had, right? Whatever it is with your body. And then, some spiritual things as well. So we have coaches that can help you with all of these things. And you can access the community of coaches instantly on your phone, wherever you are, right? Whether you're in the park, your flight got canceled, and you have an hour, and that's, you can use it, or you're traveling on the subway, and you can call a coach and get some advice. So it's like having an army of wellness coaches always in your pocket, as Steve Jobs would have said, right? 1,000 songs in your pocket. This is like, the whole army of wellness coaches in your pocket that's instantly accessible to you. Right.
Well,
and that helps create the work-life balance that it's probably going to be tough for you to achieve otherwise, because now you have that help to find the right balance.
Right. And, a lot of people use, Clarity as a platform.
Clarity, Calm, Headspace, right? These are all awesome apps that are all intended to help you. But, with the respect to Clarity, you still have to go through
it's a lot of hassle.
Pricing friction, right? Because everybody's a different rate, things like that. We've reimagined what Clarity should have been by offering a single price. So you buy minutes on TaskHuman, and you can use those minutes on any provider on the platform. So think of this as sort of an in-network, buy minutes and use it on any provider. So you can buy 100 minutes, you can use 20 minutes on yoga, 10 minutes on maybe diet advice, another 30 minutes on, maybe a Pilates class, and and another 40 minutes on physical trainer for maybe muscle building, right? So that level of one price gets you every provider in the network is really unprecedented, because we work really hard to make this the most affordable one-on-one coaching platform. And so we really hope your listeners will enjoy this convenience and the affordability that we've built with TaskHuman.
Got it. Okay, so why don't we, just because we're kind of running out of time here, I have a couple questions from the viewers, both related to TaskHuman and the topics we're discussing. So, we'll kind of just start from the top. There's about 3 or 4 questions we probably have time for. What was your biggest failure as a startup founder? And if you could go back, what would you change?
Yeah, for me, it's always been speed. There are many decisions that I've made where I've just waited too long because I wanted to wait for more perfect, product release, or maybe I felt like this feature was missing, and if we only had that, it would make the experience better. In building a consumer business, what I've realized is, no matter what you think, if you're cocky enough to think that you know something, I think the consumer is going to educate you that you don't really know, and that the best way that you can learn is to get the product out there, right? So put it out there. It's okay. Don't fear failure. You're going to learn a lot from whatever you do. Put it out there and get the feedback from the consumer base, as opposed to thinking too much on the back end and then waiting for too long, right? So I would say, just speed of releases is probably the biggest thing that I've learned, and I'm comfortable putting out stuff that may not have 100% of everything we know we should have, but we've gotten out there fast enough, gotten customer feedback, and it's dramatically changed the product in so many other dimensions that I'm very grateful, for consumer feedback. So speed of getting things out, especially in the formative stages, Chris, is something I would put on top as a lesson learned.
Got it. Okay, next one. Which tech CEO founder do you most admire, and what traits in that person do you admire? Prominent tech person.
Yeah, no, I actually have a few. I'm like many people. I love the work that Steve Jobs did. I think he was a true visionary. Was really ahead of the time. never took status quo as indicator for where tech is going. So I'm like, I'm like a lot of fanboys around here, big fan of Steve, and I always,
Nice.
I'm equally bald, and at some point I'm probably going to get glasses so I can look like Steve. But yeah, I mean, he's been a huge source of inspiration, not just for me, but I'm pretty sure millions and millions of other founders. So really admired Steve. There's actually another person that I admire called Sanjay. Sanjay was the CEO of SanDisk, and he was one of the founders. Just the humility. SanDisk, as you know, as we've talked about in this podcast, was acquired by Western Digital for $18 billion, and Sanjay was one of the co-founders of SanDisk. And just the humility that he brought to the table, despite all of his success, having built a global brand name like SanDisk, just he would come into the office and he would be one of the most unassuming people that you would have ever have met. And it was just really nice to have worked for him, and in that culture where I learned a lot about humility and and never being comfortable with status quo, challenging it, but doing it in a way that that just came across as extremely, extremely humble. So those are two people that I just admire a lot, and hope to one day incorporate all of their philosophies into our company as well.
Cool. Okay. Nice one. Where do you see the wellness market headed right now, and who are the major players? Online wellness.
Yeah, no, I think online wellness, to me, I think the future is mobile, right? You have to be able to, regardless of where you are, it has to be easily accessible on your mobile phone. Hey, are we still here?
Yep.
Okay, so easily accessible on your mobile phone. Second, it has to be instant. So when you think of something, right, when the moment that you have a question, you need to be able to find the answer and have it, have it something that's really that instant. You can't be waiting for too long. It has to be, somewhat instant, because wellness can't wait. I mean, the sooner you take care of whatever it is that you're worried about, the better. The third, I feel, is personalization. Wellness is not what works for somebody else. It's not going to work for you. And this notion in wellness is called bio-individuality, right? It means that everybody is an individual. Just because somebody lost weight on a keto diet doesn't mean you're going to lose weight on a keto diet, right? You may, but it may not be the right thing for you. And the same thing with paleo diet or any of these things, right? Wellness, to me, has to be personalized. It has to be relevant for you because you're a unique individual. Wellness solutions need to be uniquely tailored and personalized for you. That's a third vector that I would say is really important. And fourth, you got to be able to do all of these things without breaking your bank. It has to be extremely affordable. And so, that's where I feel like TaskHuman is headed. It makes things, it's mobile, it's instant. You get instant coaching, instant discovery. It's extremely convenient because tap, you're talking live to a person and getting, personalized information. So it's personalized for you. And four, it's really the most affordable solution out there. And I think there are a lot of other companies that are in the wellness space. Wellness is $1 trillion market, right, Chris? There are just a lot of angles, people having apps, algorithms, AI engines, all these things trying to help you with one thing or the other. So I think the next 10 years, wellness is going to have these four characteristics. It's going to be, personalized. It's going to be affordable. It's going to be convenient, and it's going to be mobile driven. And I think a number of companies are driving in this direction. We hope to be driving fast and becoming a market leader in one-on-one coaching in the wellness space.
And would you say it's specifically in the corporate space?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of where we want to go is, where pools of consumers, right, corporations. I also see, companies subsidizing this for their employees. Why shouldn't Google or Apple or, if you're running your own company and you're listening to this podcast, look, why don't you have 60 minutes of free coaching per employee per month on this platform? Your employees are going to love it, right? If you're running a, hotel chain with customers, a customer comes in, books a $200 a night room in your hotel, right? What's your wellness plan? Is it just the gym? Are you gonna offer some kind of instruction to go with all the equipment that you have in the gym, right? And oh, by the way, you can find tons of personal trainers. So why don't you offer for your customers, if you're a Hyatt or, you know, a Hilton or a Marriott, right? Or a Sheraton, offer, you know, 20 minutes for customers who check in into your hotel for the period of their stay, right? So I think there's a huge opportunity, Chris, for corporations to step in and subsidize the conversation. But in the end, you know, if the consumer wants more coaching, they're going to have to pay for it themselves. And so I think there's both the consumer and the corporate angle that, you know, we're going to be pursuing. And I think it's everybody's responsibility to keep their employees, customers, or themselves happy.
Got it. Okay, cool. I think that's it. And yeah, Ravi, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Yeah, likewise, Chris. Thanks for the opportunity to be on your.
Where can people find you?
People can find me on the app. I'm actually customer support in TaskHuman, so download the app and hit up customer support. Chances are you'll be talking to me
immediately, within 30 seconds.
That's right. It's convenient and it's entirely free.
Wear sunglasses. That's a tip.
Exactly.
All right.
Have a good
one, everybody.
Thank you, Chris.
All right.
Yes. Bye.